Find strength in your disability. Hi, my name is Elijah Hedgman, and in today's motivational speech, the topic is finding strength in your disability. Now, I've done ones similar to this, but the reason I'm calling it this is because we're not just talking about one disability here. We're talking about a few. A lot of people who don't have disabilities may not always understand, for that reason, obviously, what having a disability is like. Sometimes, for that reason, they may become judgmental towards people who do have disabilities. But sometimes the same can be said for people with disabilities towards people with other disabilities that they don't understand themselves. I may not have a lot of different disabilities that other people have, but I can personally speak for myself. Has going through life with a visual impairment and a hearing impairment been hard at times? Yes. Does that mean it's impossible to get through life with those disabilities, though? Of course not. Why? Well, simple. There's things like Braille for people who are visually impaired and can't read print, and they can read Braille with their fingers. Or there's hearing aids that can allow people with hearing impairments to hear not 100%, but at least a bit better. Now, for other disabilities, aka what this is really about, things like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or autism. I may not have those disabilities, but I've seen personally how they work. Now, you might be asking, if you don't have them, well, how can you talk on them? Like I said, I've seen people with them. I can't 100% speak on it, but I can speak at least on what I've seen. And I can tell you right now, it is not impossible for people with OCD or with autism to get through life. My best friend, someone who I've known since I was really young, and someone who is now my partner, has OCD. Visual impairments, hearing impairments. She still gets through life. A friend that I've known for, I believe, a year now, has autism. And my best friend from childhood, who I met in a music school, has autism. From what I know and from what I've seen, both of them get through life just fine. My friend from when I was a child who has autism, one of the smartest people I know, especially when it comes to trains. And by that I mean, if you ask him about trains, he will have a pleasant and awesome conversation with you that might last more than an hour, and you're not going to feel bored. And no, I am not kidding. The friend that I met a while ago who has autism, very knowledgeable about mental health and wants to be a mental health professional. Again, when you have a conversation with him, it doesn't actually sound boring about it, and he gives you some pretty cool things that you may not have known about it if you didn't look up stuff about mental health, which is very important. Your disability does not make you weak. Your disability does not make you lesser than anyone who doesn't have a disability. So I want you to do this. Right now, I want you to ask yourself, who am I? Do I have a disability? How do I go through life with it? Does it limit me or does it help me? And on top of that, is my disability something that makes me disabled? Because I've talked about this many times in the past too, and this is something that I think is very important. A lot of people sometimes seem to think, especially if they don't have one, that someone who does have a disability can't do things for themselves. Now, sometimes that's just because they're not informed, or maybe sometimes it's because that's actually how they feel and there's no changing their mind on that. Okay, well, simple. If that's because they're not informed, inform them. It's up to us, the people with disabilities, to inform them. Or if that's simply how they think and there's no changing their mind, okay, fine. Don't change their minds. But don't let their mindset become yours. Just because you have a disability does not make you disabled, and it never will. Your disability makes you unique. Your disability means that you go through life differently than someone who doesn't have that disability or someone who doesn't have any disabilities. But you are not disabled, and you are not lesser than. You are different. Everyone's different. No one's the same to anyone else. Maybe there's some similarities, yes, but having similarities and being completely the same are two different things. You can have similarities to someone and not be completely the same. No one is completely the same, but that doesn't mean it's bad. So, have you defined to yourself what disability you have and how it helps you or how it limits you? Okay. Well, now I want you to ask yourself this. How do I feel towards myself with the disability that I have? Do I feel bad about myself? Do I feel like I should be putting myself down and like I can't do anything? If that is how you feel, it's not going to be easy to change that perspective. I get it. But I want you to try. You having a disability is not the problem. It's the outlook that you have because of your disability that's the problem. And it's the outlook that maybe you have because of other people feeding you that information that is the problem. You having a disability is not what limits you. You're limiting yourself with the disability because of your outlook of having it. But that can easily change if you try. If you're an OCD and you always feel like you need to be clean, okay? That's not a bad thing. But I want you to remember this. And coming from someone who kind of has it, but it's not seriously bad, maybe I can't speak. I get that. But hear me out. Being clean is always a good thing. Yes, that's very true. However, I promise you, I don't think it's possible to always 24/7 be 100% clean. But that's not a bad thing. Be as clean as you can. Take a shower whenever you actually need to take a shower, which, yes, daily. But what I mean is, don't overdo it. Try to tell yourself it's okay not to overdo it. Do it as much as you need to actually be clean. Because yes, that is important. Very important. But overdoing it, I promise you, isn't going to help you. Overdoing it might actually make things worse. For people with autism. I can't say this for everyone, but I can say this for the people that I mentioned, and I can say this for the ones that I've heard about. Y'all have to be some of the smartest people that I've ever heard of. And sometimes that I actually know. So when people try to look at you funny and say something like, you can't do this, or you're this way because of this, because you have autism, don't listen to them. Those people don't know you. They never take the time to, and they probably won't ever take the time to. But it's also important, again, about how you feel about yourself. So for any disability, that is a strength, not a weakness. Use it as such. Prove to the world that just because you have a disability, that doesn't mean that you can't do things just like everyone else. Maybe you have to do it a different way, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it at all. Because that is what's most important. And once you know that you've proven that, guess what? If you feel like you've proven that to the world, then I think you technically have proven that to yourself as well. because you have to prove it to yourself first before you prove it to the world in the first place, in order to get that mindset to be able to prove it to the world. Your disability is not your weakness. Your outlook is your weakness, depending on how you feel about yourself with your disability, but you can change that, and it's time to try. Live your life to the best way that you can, in the best way that you can, to the best of your abilities. And if you have a disability, fine. Make that your power. Make that your strength. You can do it. I believe in you. Now it's time to start believing in yourself.